Function notes. Let's review these. A relation is information that can be written as a set of ordered pairs. Okay. A relation can be represented in various ways. One of the ways is in a set notation. Do you see that we have these braces right there? So you write the ordered pairs inside of that. In addition to that, you can have a mapping where this right here is your input value or your X value, and this is your output value. How do I know that this is input and output? Well, this is where the starting of the arrow goes, and it goes towards the output. Over here, I have a table of X and Y, and then we can also do it from a graph. The domain is the same as the input value or the X value. Range is the same as the Y value or the input value. Okay, shown below are relations written as ordered pairs that are considered a function or not a function. Okay, now in order to remember, excuse me, whether or not something is a function or not, we have to remember a couple of things. Let's look at each one of these. What is the same? What is the difference? So let's go down here to not a function. And what things do you notice? On the first set, let's notice something. So we're just looking at the top one. So this has a 10 and this has a 10. Nothing else is the same. Everything else is different. Let's look at the next ones. This has a 12. This has a 12. Everything else is different. Down here, -1. I have a -6 here. I have a -6 here. So if you look at not a function, that means the input value or the domain or the X value has repeated itself. Whereas in a function, this has 1, 8, and 10. Nothing's repeated. -5, 9, 3, and 7. Nothing is repeated. -2, -1, 5, 10, -9. Nothing repeated. So a function does not have a, oops, that was weird, a repeated input, domain, X value. Okay, so a function does not have a repeated input value or X value. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at this. If you look at this one, 2 goes to exactly one thing. -4 goes to exactly one thing. -7 goes to exactly one thing. The Y or the X value is not repeated. Same thing over here. -9 goes to one thing. 0 goes to one thing. 4 goes to one thing. But if I'm looking at not a function, 0 goes to two different things. So if I was writing that as an ordered pair, 0 is going to two different things. So that 0 value was repeated. Over here, it may look like this is a function, but look at this. That's a 1, and this is also a 1, but they're going to the same thing. FYI, this is a function because 1 is only going to one thing. 1 may have been written two different times, but that is actually a function. This is the only one right here that is not a function. All of the rest of them are functions. Okay, so if I look here, 5 doesn't repeat, 0, -8, 6 doesn't repeat, 1, 5, -10 doesn't repeat. Over here, The 5s are repeating and they're going to two totally different things. So let's look here. Going to two totally different things. So that is why those are not functions. If I come over here, if I look at all of these are all functions on top. Now remember, we did a vertical line test, okay, and it passes through one point at a time. Okay, so if I was to, it passes through one point at a time. So if I drew a bunch of vertical lines, it only goes through the graph one at a time, 1 point at a time, 1 point at a time, 1 point. I know these aren't even vertical lines, most of them. Okay, again, only going through this one at a time. If I was to do not a function, it passes through the graph at more than 1 point. Okay, so if I drew a vertical line, it hits here. I know it's not very vertical, but here and here. Right there it passed, but if I come right here, it actually passed through it 3 times, so it doesn't pass. Here, pass through it in 2 spots. Here it passes, but if you come over here, it does not pass. So the whole thing does not pass. Look at that, that's a whole line. None of those pass. Okay. Ordered pairs mapping tables. If the domain, the x value input repeats, the relation is not a function. If the domain, x, or inputs are all different, the relation is a function. Graph, vertical line test. If you drew vertical lines throughout the graph, and if it crosses more than 1 point, it's not a function. If it only crosses once, then it is a function. Function is a relation that assigns exactly one output to each input. Think about a vending machine. When you push a button like B1, how many things come out? Sorry, I can't even speak. How many things come out? Okay.